Welcome to the Tarot Coven Cast. Real people, real talk, real magic. Hello out there, lovely listeners, and welcome to the Tarot Coven Cast. I'm one of your hosts, Jasmin.
And I'm Jechanovia.
And on this bonus episode, I'll be exploring the Zodiac sign Leo, while Jechanovia shares the magic of the Celtic Tree sign Holly. So let's dive right in.
Let's do it. Tell me about Leo.
Okay, all right. So some approximate dates for Leo season are July 23rd to August 22nd. For 2021 in particular, it will be from July 22nd to August 22nd, so a little bit earlier than the approximate dates. And of course, Leo season also encompasses Lunasa. Did I say that right?
Yep,
I always forget.
Nailed it. You nailed it.
Or as some people also call it, Lammas. Do you want to give us like a quick reminder of just like the basics of Lunasa? I mean, we have a bonus episode that people can also go and listen to, but just like a couple facts maybe?
Yeah. Well, it's the first of the 3 harvest festivals. So it's like all your grains and stuff. So bake bread and eat all the bread things, everything grain.
Mm-hmm.
You have my permission. It's like the time of year when you see all the agricultural fairs kind of start and all those fun, fall fairs kind of thing. I know it's not fall yet, but that vibe.
Mm-hmm.
The heat of the summer's coming. There's a lot of people that's when you get your backyard parties. We just gravitate towards that whole community because the hard work of summer's done. Now you're just waiting for that harvest.
Right.
So,
and it's one of your favorites on the wheel?
It is my favorite.
It is your favorite. Okay.
As much as I love Yule, it is my absolute favorite. It's like from Lammas on is nothing but it's like, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Amazing.
All of them right through.
Yeah. Yay. Okay. Well, thank you for that refresher. And like I said, guys, we do have a full episode on that, which you can find just in the podcast feed or on YouTube or
Mm-hmm.
All right, so back to Leo. So the polarity here, we've got masculine, yang, and active. Kind of the keywords here are exhale and daytime. Masculine or yang signs typically tend to be expressive, outgoing, action-oriented, and objective. So we'll talk about the element of Leo, which is the interaction of the sign with the world. And Leo is, of course, a fire sign. And fire signs tend to be dry and hot. And when you think about, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, where Leo season is, I mean, it's at the heat of the sun, right? Or the height of the sun, I guess I should say, and also the heat of the sun. But yeah, so the dry and hotness kind of makes sense there. And fire signs tend to be passionate, assertive, enthusiastic, freedom-loving, and willing to take charge and lead. And really just think of the wand suit for the fire element in the Zodiac. Just all the heat and the passion that they bring. They're really motivated by challenge. They can have a competitive edge. And they're really great at motivating and inspiring others. And for whatever reason, as I was writing out these notes, Leo was just giving me such Queen and King of Wands vibes because there is that royal sort of element to Leo and being, ruled by the sun and being such a center of attention type sign. And then you think about the wand suit and the queen and the king are just, really at the center in a way. So,
yeah.
All right. So on to the modality, which is the mode of the existence of the sign. And Leo is a fixed sign. So it's holding down the heat of summer where the sun is at its peak. Now, fixed signs are very stabilizing, sustaining, persistent, and determined. But they can also be, kind of stubborn and slow or resistant to change, which can kind of get them into these like obsessive and sort of stuck periods or having those qualities at times. But they're very reliable and they have the follow through. Like they will stay with something to see it through to the end because they have that fixed, that enduring nature. And they're space holder. Like I was just saying, they stick around so they can, be the people that you go to when you really need that sort of consistent support. And here we go again in my notes, consistent, conserving, and preserving. So when we mix the fire element with the fixed modality, we can think about things like the bonfire or the cooking flame, like the thing that we are using to cook and nourish ourselves. No, we're not going to cook ourselves, but we're going to cook for ourselves and have something that nourishes and sustains us from that.
We're going to cook in the sun. We're going to, sunbathe.
Exactly. And the next point is the sun. So, I mean, obviously, I'm going to get to this again, but that's the ruling planet. But I mean, that is fixed fire. That is something that gives off heat consistently every day, the same time, the same sort of rotation, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. It's also, the center of attention, like I was just talking about with the king and the queen. It's a leader. Fixed fire could be like the one woman show or the one person show. It's sort of the centering force of a social circle. And for me, Leo energy is really, it's the fuel to do more than live. Like it really helps you to thrive. And I think that has a lot to do with the sun, again, being its ruling planet. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really the giver of life in that way.
Yeah. Now, with the fire and the fixed, because to me, fire is always like that really fast movement. So when it's fire with the fixed energy, would that, like, does the fire fizzle out, or would that be kind of like the fire just has more time to really get its feet in the ground? I don't know, get it going. So,
Yeah, well, I think that's such a good question, and I will kind of touch on this later, but Leo, I mean,
okay.
when we think about the kind of like the bonfire, the campfire, or even like the hearth fire that keeps your house warm
Hmm.
throughout the night, it has to be fed. So it has
Yeah.
to be fed well enough to keep going. And that
Right.
is an element still with fixed fire. And we're going to see that come up with Leo where it is this can come off negative, but it can also just be a very authentic thing, but it seeks out attention, this energy,
Hmm.
and it does like to be the center of things. Again, that sun sort of
Okay.
thing. But the way that we feed that quality within ourselves, I think that's where we get the negative and positive from. And again, I'm going to touch on that a little bit
Oh,
later in terms of when we're using the Leo energy to our advantage. So,
ah,
great question, and
juicy.
I'll touch on it for
Okay.
sure.
Excellent.
All right, so as I've already said a zillion times, the planetary ruler of Leo is the sun. And the sun, really sort of brass tacks here, but the sun can symbolize our basic identity, our conscious purpose, and consistency. It's the most visible of all of our planets. So it really does bring a lot of clarity and understanding. And it's also the brightest. So it's giving us that warmth and that fuel. And I mean, I feel like this is obvious that during Leo season, the sun would be in its home. But for some reason, I like wrote that down and I was like, wow, there's like a month of having this planet in its sign, doing its thing, like bringing us the most warmth, the most fire. And I mean, other planets will stay in their home signs for longer than that. But there was something about the power of Leo or the sun being in Leo that felt like really, I don't know.
Well,
It's just,
the sun is like so close to home, right?
yeah, it has to be that. Like it just has to be our relationship with the sun. I think we have a deeper relationship with like let's say the sun and the moon than we do with maybe
Hmm.
Saturn or Jupiter or something. So there's
Well,
just I
yeah,
don't know, something just felt really powerful about that. So
I
I don't
love
know.
that.
Listeners, if you're catching what I'm throwing down, let me know. So, dignities and debilities. Here we have Saturn in its detriment or its exile. So, it's the opposite sign. The opposite sign of Aquarius is where Saturn is at home. So, it's the furthest away from home when it's in Leo, right? And Saturn is a very cold planet, whereas the sun and Leo are very inherently warm. So, I think it's difficult for Leo wants to sort of open its arms and take a leap, whereas Saturn wants to calculate before leaping. It wants to it just wants to have more of a thought process where Leo is, I mean, it is a fire. It's ready to go. It's ready to
Yeah.
burn, right? And yeah, at their core, like this is one of the earliest things that I learned about, when you're contrasting planets to understand the differences between them is that the sun emits, which we can understand that anytime you go outside and you feel the warmth of the sun, it's
Yeah.
emitting. Whereas Saturn
Right.
really does tend to reject. Saturn is about limits and boundaries and saying no to things and making sure that you take time to it's more long-term. And I do think
Mhm.
that Leo has its and the sun have its own long-term qualities, but it's that warmth that really makes things different and sets them at a polarity from one another for
Yeah.
sure.
I feel like there's such an opportunity for balance. Like if you can find that place, that sweet spot in the middle of those two energies, it's like
Totally. Yeah, well, I
I
always
like
think
it.
that there's something it's so funny sometimes when you hear people talk about certain signs that they've had issues with, and then you find out it's like the opposite of their sun sign, or it's the opposite of their ascendant, so it's their descendant, and it's like, well, that
Yeah.
is a polar opposite for you. So you're probably coming up against things that, it's like you have a hard time seeing eye to eye on something. And yet, if you just walked the line to the middle of one another, there would be so much there in the center that you really could
Yeah.
actually vibe on together, because you're coming from the same view in a way, but it's just the opposite end. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but
I
I
love
do
it.
think that there's so much that people could really learn from looking at the opposite of their rising sign or the opposite of their sun sign.
Oh, that's just brain candy. Thank you for that.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, so some keywords and themes for Leo. The sort of mantra is I show. And then we have this idea of love versus pride. And that really got me thinking about the strength card. And I think that the strength card is really more about an inner strength and an inner confidence versus, being a tough guy and being able to, like, look tough and stand. I mean, maybe it is standing your ground, but not in that, like, probably overly masculinized way, like a
Yeah.
toxic masculinity in a kind of way. But I think the strength card really teaches you to cultivate that inner confidence, that inner ability to stand up for yourself, where it doesn't have to be violent or aggressive. But I think that that is kind of the line that Leo is walking sometimes between the love
Okay.
and between the pride. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so going back to the strength card to help it manifest in the more positive way, right? So there's also creativity and the need for creative expression. Leo loves being appreciated by others, and like all fire, it really needs to be fed. Leo will have qualities of fidelity and loyalty, honesty and authenticity. I think this energy can really help us speak from the heart, and I do see it as a really heart-centered sign, and that's still making me think of the strength card. Like, I have my issues with tarot associations and astrology, but the strength card is one that makes so much sense to me. Like, it just
Well, yeah. It's like when strength marries compassion. It's
yes.
just it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there's the lion aspect of it all, which we see in a lot of strength cards, but that is the sort of animal that's associated with Leo. And, lions operate from a primal instinct sort of place. So
Mhm.
when we're dealing with a lot of Leo energy, we're probably moving from a place that's a little bit more instinctual. Leo energy can push us to maybe like put a little bit too much emphasis or stock into our appearances. Only because I think that that's something that gets you sort of an instant gratification or gets you those likes from people, gets you that center of attention kind of
Mm,
thing. And it
yeah.
can lead to being shallow, but I think that, as with anything, there's a positive expression of that, which I would think would be radiance and confidence and just being the authentic, expressive, even dramatic and performative, Leo energy that you might have, like giving into that. That's okay. But this energy can also, show up in leadership or figureheads. Way back in the day in astrology, the sun was really seen as the king. So again, really
Mhm.
that center of things, that leader. Leo energy is inspiring, enlivening, vivifying, and illuminating. And it can be attention seeking, sometimes in healthy ways, but sometimes in ways that are in detriment to its actual authenticity. And with the latter, I think Leo energy can be a little bit sensitive to feedback, making it a bit of a handful when it mistakes the healthy for the just cuz of it all, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So
Yeah.
when you're actually, I do have more of a note about this in a minute, so I'll just keep going. It can also cause us to be a little bit of like, my way is the better way. Again, it's ruled by the sun. So it does tend to think of itself as being very central. And it's not necessarily unwarranted because of that. And again, it can come for a very authentic place, but it can also lead to a little bit of, overly prideful or arrogant behavior if
Yeah.
it's unchecked. So I think seeing the value of who you are and what Leo energy brings for you is really key to avoiding the mindset of thinking that you're better than everyone else, which can also lead to you seeing the inherent value in everyone and everything around you, or helping to cultivate that in others, your projects, your relationships. It's more about taking the spotlight and sharing it. And I think that's how it can show up in the more
I
positive
love
way.
that.
You know, you see your worth and then you can more easily see that worth in others.
Yeah, I think when you recognize your own strengths and you find your confidence in that, that just gives you more energy to support other people and say, hey,
Exactly.
if I can do this, you can do that. Like, that just gave me goosebumps.
Which is why I totally think of the Queen and the King of Wands, because to me, that energy is so much like don't get me wrong, they've hustled, they've worked hard to get to where they're
Yeah.
at, but they are not in competition with others. Like it always feels like an energy where you really do know your worth. You're coming from an authentic place. And in doing so, you're lifting other people as you're climbing as well.
Leading by example, like that
Yes.
whole,
Yes.
cliche about it. Going back to the attention seeking part, when you were saying, I'm just going to look back here, sometimes ways that are in detriment to its authenticity. So one way that I'm thinking that might show up would be is if maybe you're not getting the same, let's use social media as an example.
Yeah.
You're not getting the likes and you're not getting the shares that you really want. So you start to kind of tweak and change and not be, do what everybody else is doing, and then you start getting a little bit more popular. And then all of a sudden you just become somebody completely different from who you were when you started.
Absolutely.
And you created this persona.
Yes, 100%. That's exactly what I was going for. And that's what I mean where like, so you're needing that fire to be fed and you're seeking that attention. And so then you just do it. That's why I said like the just cuz, like I'm doing it just because I need that validation. And I think that that's like a thing that a lot of people can identify with. And, maybe I've never said this before, but if I have, just to reiterate, even if you don't have a placement in Leo, like, it's not your sun, it's not your moon, it's not your rising, it's still in your chart. It's still there. It's still it's still ruling over one of your houses, which means it's ruling over one area of your life. So there is probably an area in your life where this energy tends to come through a little bit more. And, it's going to be different levels and your mileage may vary depending on who you are. But yeah.
And I wonder too, if that could, result as well in somebody, maybe if they're not being recognized for their work or a project or something they've done, maybe they're taking it personally that, oh, well, I'm not as good as I thought. So then that just degrades that confidence.
Yes.
Oh, I like it.
All right. So some tarot associations. We have the Strength card, of course, which is associated with Leo. The Sun is associated with the Sun. The Five of Wands is Saturn in Leo. The Six of Wands is Jupiter in Leo. And the Seven of Wands is Mars in Leo. And if for some reason this is the first episode that you're listening to, thank you so much for joining us. But we do have episodes about all of the suits where I went into a much deeper discussion about each of those astrological correspondences. So definitely check that out. All right, now a few ways which we can use Leo energy to our advantage during Leo season. So as always, definitely check out what house Leo rules in your chart, because that's where the sun is sort of bringing its illumination and its clarity, to that area of those house topics during Leo season. And I think it's also important to look to where your sun is. Its placement is going to help to further define the Leo house, the purpose and the direction, the quality of that stuff, because wherever Leo is in your chart, that house will actually be ruled by the sun. So looking to where the sun is, you can just get even more understanding of all that kind of stuff. I say during Leo season, you put yourself out there a little bit more. Just take the chance and be more visible. So if there's something that you've been kind of holding back on, I think that Leo season gives us that energy and is a little more tender with us maybe, and is supportive more for us to put ourselves out there.
That fits. Okay. Let's rewind to go back to the Cancer season. Remember you were talking about primordial waters, and that still resonates with me so deeply.
Oh, good.
Well, it's like everything that you've created and manifested that have come out of that. Now it's taking form into that Leo.
Right.
It's poetry.
For sure.
It's poetry.
Yeah.
Okay. As you were.
All right. So, also during Leo season, stay open to inspiration and use whatever increase in energy you may get from that inspiration to help inspire others as well. So, if you have any projects that maybe fell to the wayside, maybe they're going to get the infusion of passion that they've been needing. So, just take advantage. That kind of goes back into the staying open to inspiration part. Use the sustained and enduring qualities of Leo to feed your passions. Get outside and soak in the sun, even in the southern hemisphere. And obviously, we're still in COVID stuff, so be safe, but wear your sunscreen or whatever. But,
Drink
just get
water.
outside, drink water. Yeah. But just let that sun soak in. This is going to be specific to people who are interested in this, but I say, like, if you've been waiting to try something like stand-up comedy, go for it. If you get nervous to post selfies, now's the time. Or maybe audition for a play if that's a thing that's happening where you live, if that's a safe thing to do. Those are all really, like, nice performative ways that I think that we can use this Leo energy. Have fun. Connect with your inner child. Like, what's a thing that you just haven't done in years that you would love to even just try again? Or what's a thing you always wanted to try when you were a kid, but you never had the resources or access or something? Now you're an adult and you can, do something like that.
Go jump in a mud puddle.
Sure. Why not? Yeah. Like, do any of that kind of stuff. I mean, go like rent a bouncy castle or something.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to your instincts and go with your gut. Be more comfortable from moving from that primal place that I was talking about because of the connection with the lion, the connection with the strength card. Now, here's where I was talking, discussing the feeding of the fire. So it's a great time to think about how you do feed that fire within. Like, what is feeding you in the healthy way? Is your fire's food coming from a healthy source? So are you getting them from Instagram likes, or are you getting that from actually feeling seen and understood? Is it from finishing a project that you are really excited about? Is it from helping somebody to fulfill some sort of dream or something, or like even just like helping them move? I don't know. It could be so many things, but what actually keeps that fire running in a way that is sustainable and nourishing and can continue to help you to keep the fire burning, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that kind of answer your question from before?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then my last thing here is just to get your body moving. I think exercises that promote endurance and staying power, and staying power, and then just kind of overall strength. So I think it's, it's just also, it's fire energy, right? So it's active.
Yeah.
It wants to be moving. And so whatever helps you get your blood flowing in that way. And I mean, I think because it's Leo, it's not Aries. It's not the energy that's like, just get out there, just do it. Leo wants to have more fun. So find something that you actually have fun doing, though. Like, don't just punish yourself with exercise. Like,
yeah,
buy a pair of roller skates and go roller skating, or like something
just
like
make
that.
Sure they're cotton candy colored.
Exactly. It's no big deal.
Yeah. You got to do it right.
All right. So that's it. That's Leo season. Okay. Teach me all about Holly.
Okay. All right. So Holly is my birth Celtic month.
Yay.
So I'm excited for that. And it's so funny that it kind of more pairs with Leo, but
yeah,
it's cool. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. So with Holly, it's actually in the Ogham, it's called Tsinna. The approximate dates are July 8th through to August 4th. It's the 8th month of the Celtic Tree calendar. And from the Handbook of Celtic Astrology by Helena Patterson, it is 15 degrees Cancer to 11 degrees 59 minutes Leo. And of course, as we already talked about, Lunasa or Lammas, which is, the festival honoring the sun god Lu. All right. So it is masculine and active, and it is earth energy, but it's paired with fire when the occasion calls for it. So it's like sometimes battle is necessary to stand your ground. So that's that fire and earth together. So it's using that fire energy responsibly and only when you need to.
Right.
Yeah. The ruling planet is the earth, as well as the Mars and Saturn. So it's interesting you mentioned Saturn was in detriment.
Yes.
No. Is that right? Oh,
yeah.
I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I'm getting it. So, but then the Mars and Saturn pairing was really interesting to me because Saturn is very slow down, stop, just think about this. But then Mars is very, let's go.
Totally. But that seems more of that fire and earth energy, really.
Yeah, exactly. And they come together to make that earth.
Yes. Love that there's a
So,
really that Earth gets to be a ruling planet for something. It's very cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what pagans worship, right? So it's
Yes.
bound to happen in one of
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
So some of the deities associated, obviously Gaia, Ceres, Persephone, Danu, the horn god or Cernunnos, Pan, Lunasa, and Thor.
Cool.
All right. So moving into the mythology and the symbols. So the main symbol is the unicorn and the flaming spear. So I mean badassery, right?
Whoa.
Like I'll ride a unicorn and carry a flaming spear.
Yeah. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So, and of course, the sword of truth. So an interesting way I look at the sword of truth is that it's made up of mirrors, right? So when you have to face the truth, you have to face the parts of yourself that are reflecting back at you in that truth. So it's really interesting. The flaming spear and the sword of truth together just sounds really super cool to carry with you at all times, spiritually speaking.
Absolutely.
Don't walk down a street carrying a spear and a sword, guys.
Probably not. It's probably not a great idea.
I will not bail you out.
No, we warned you.
Yeah. All right. So it's also like this really energy of sacrifice and reincarnation. So, and this doesn't necessarily mean death. It could mean that you're sacrificing something so that something else can come through. Another part of you can show itself. So you're reincarnating yourself, like within this life. You're reusing that energy. And so that all comes from that fire, but it's got to come from earth. It has to exist in the first place, whether it's mental or spiritual, practice you've been doing to make it manifest.
Mm-hmm.
It also represents the battle between good and evil. So it's finding that balance within. So like some shadow work, because we're humans, right? There's parts of us that aren't pretty in all of us, whether we want to admit it or not. And we always have to be willing to kind of heal and overcome that. And I think we also get confused with like this whole, like, for instance, there's greed. And at the other end of that spectrum, you have like this complete like selflessness, give everything, generosity. But if you don't have that balance in the middle, you can't survive on nothing. You need to also be willing to accept and stuff like that. But when you have enough, be willing to give. So it's finding that balance. It doesn't mean that, you can't be a little greedy sometimes, because sometimes you need to say no. And sometimes you need to hold something for yourself or take care of yourself. So finding that balance. If you sleep with holly under your pillow for dream work, it'll help. Like if you want messages from your ancestors or from your guides or just from the universe, you can sleep with it under your pillow. And if you can't get your hands on it, you can draw a picture of it and put it underneath. I've not tried that myself because I actually do have a sprig of holly, but I took a picture of it and a friend printed it off and stuck it under her pillow. And apparently it worked. So
yeah, don't you print out your pictures of your holly, take a picture, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because holly's really hard to find and it's toxic. So if you have kids or pets around, don't have it in your house. It is toxic.
So surprised it's hard to find because it's so, unless I'm thinking of the wrong thing, it's like Christmassy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'd think, I meant like actual real holly because some of it does grow here in Canada, but it's so cold here. It's definitely not an evergreen here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, if you live in the UK, you probably are like, what do you mean it's hard to find? But just, you know what? Cut us some slack. It's cold here.
That's fair. Why. And I've probably only ever seen like plastic or something, but.
Right. But that'll work if that's what you got. You can use that for ritual work. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Use what you got. Okay. So it'll protect you from evil intent and it will inhibit you from working from a place of malicious intent. So there's a lot of self-reflection there and self-knowledge and understanding that sometimes maybe we're not working from a place of, sometimes we're just being assholes.
Yep.
You can't put it nice. Like sometimes we just want to be an asshole because something pissed us off. And so holly will help us kind of balance that out and not act, no knee-jerk reactions, something, every time something happens that we don't like. So also one of the birds that is associated is the starling. So these are believed to be messengers sharing omens and prophecies when they gather in large flocks. So when you see that big flock of birds and they kind of all move and then it looks like they're like molding in the sky and that's called murmuration.
Okay.
And it's super cool because if you look at those, sometimes you can see like little symbols or messages or faces or whatever. You can scry with those. And I always love it, but I don't see enough of them often enough to get a lot of practice doing it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So there's that. And this is fun. And it kind of brings us back to Thor, kind of in a way. So because they love to snack on fermenting, like rotting fruit, some people believe that they they do that because they just enjoy being drunk all the time. And so anyway, I just think that's
Hey,
fun.
good for them. Why
I
not?
haven't like verified that fact that they actually are getting drunk, but I do know that it's a belief, and I don't even want to know if it's true because I just want to believe that it is because
Yeah, I'm with you. That's fun.
it's a party. All right, and I already mentioned that holly can be toxic. Do not ingest it. Do not use it on your skin without talking to a very well trained and experienced herbal healer. But holly leaves were used in some indigenous cultures and also in very traditional, even Celtic background, as a treatment for measles and whooping cough. It like prepared in different ways for each one, but I thought that was really interesting. Where it's almost like with the right doses, something that could, potentially kill us could actually heal us as well.
Right.
So it's all about that balance again. Not everything that we think is evil is actually evil. It's just how we use it.
True.
Which is kind of what you talked about before with the Leo energy is like, it just because it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad just because it's something we associate with bad.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I think maybe you're kind of referring to that like attention seeking kind of thing, which I think can just be like people love to perform. People love to, be seen in those ways. And I mean, we wouldn't have actors if that wasn't, true. And
Bingo.
You can absolutely tell when there are people that do it for the fame of it all. And like, even then, I'm like, if that's really genuinely what you're down for, like, fine. Cool.
Then do it.
Yeah. As long as you're just being 100% you and you're not, hurting people, obviously. Like, great.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. Just be you.
Yes.
Because, I love you.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, the bark has been used as a pain reliever, but not internally. They would use the bark in some kind of balm, I guess, or something for broken bones, sprained, pulled muscles, dislocated bones and stuff. And I thought, again, that is just super cool to me. I don't know. Love it. It will protect you against lightning strike. So people would keep it in their homes. They would keep it like from Yule. They would actually keep little sprigs from their Yule celebrations in their home so that they wouldn't get lightning strike through the summer. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Another fun fact, holly is considered the masculine form of ivy. Like it's ivy is the feminine.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. The dried leaves were ground into a powder and sprinkled on babies' blankets for protection. Yeah, I know. I did the same thing.
I'm like, the toxic part. Like,
toxic
babies
part.
love to put stuff in their mouth.
All right, right. So I'm like, okay. So I guess if they can survive that, they can survive anything.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's, who knows how long ago this was done, and I think that people had a much better grasp on herbs and how to use them and what safety was with them and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah,
for sure.
Don't go buy a bunch of holly and put it on your baby.
Yeah, don't do it. We do not condone that. But it's also interesting too, because it kind of goes along the same thing where it's like, okay, it could be toxic in what amounts, but it's like rhubarb. Like rhubarb leaves, yes, they have toxins in them, but in order to actually get like seriously sick from them, you'd have to eat an awful lot of it.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things that it's like, I just don't know what the dosage is, so I just won't use it.
That's fair.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the triquetra here. One of my favorite symbols. So according to Druid practice, there are 3 circles of existence. So the circles is like in Druidry, everything's a circle. Nothing is like a straight line. Nothing has a beginning or an end. So it's just how we roll. So last month we were talking about the oak, which is like the corner post of the Gwynvid, connection with the gods, the spiritual awakening. So we talked about that. One of the other planes of existence is the Anun. It's the space before birth, the state of creation and reincarnation, kind of that primordial ocean, where we are everything and nothing all at once. So that one's a big one to get your head around.
Yeah.
But we actually are because we're like full of potential, but we're not that yet. So what we're in is the earth plane, which is Abrid. And this is our physical existence here on the earth. And it encompasses everything that is known in the physical universe and everything that we do not know. We acknowledge that there are mysteries that we will never understand. So that envelops kind of like, other worlds and stars that we haven't even discovered yet.
Right.
It accepts that they're there. So it includes that. And the coolest definition I found from encyclopedia.com it says that Abed represents the stage of struggle and evolution against Kethril, the power of evil. So it's like, it's almost like, oh, how appropriate. So it goes into that whole, yes, we're here to balance out the good and the evil, because the evil exists whether we want to. And when I say evil, I don't mean like, demons running around the earth.
No.
I mean the evil that lives within everybody and everything.
The evil that humans do.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's finding that balance of, I'm not pure evil, so I'm just going to balance that out with all the good that I do. And then if you're curious for the other part of the triquetra is the, I think it's called Kagunt. I think it's how you pronounce it. It's like that circle on the inside that connects all three of the other circles. So that is like the non-gendered God energy. So it's like ever present. It's in everything you see, everything you feel, everything you touch on all planes. So it's just always there. So that is a symbol that is associated with the holly.
Gotcha.
So the Holly King and Oak King story, I mean, I've told that before.
Yeah.
They do the battle at summer solstice, winter solstice.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So after the summer solstice, the Holly King won over the Oak King. So that's why we're headed into the darker side of the year. So that's what that is. So Holly is a reminder that winter's coming. And although things look abundant right now, you still have to prepare for the so-called, quote unquote, hungry season. You want to save your money. You want to preserve food. You want to check on your food storages, take precautions for, power outages, learn skills you may need later, those kinds of things. You want to start thinking about those, which just goes along with the harvest season, right?
Right. Yeah. It's just, that's a thing that still blows my mind that we hit the summer solstice and then we're in the waning part of the year. Like it still continues to mess with my brain, but
yeah. I know. I'm there with you. It's fine. We'll be all right.
You will make it.
So, all right. So Holly helps us recognize that life is not intended to be easy, but is very much worth celebrating no matter how rough things look in any given moment. So that kind of works with the Leo energy. It's like, be a kid, have fun, play, like enjoy your life, because this is what we got. So, and then also a time of looking back at how far you've come and rewarding your hard work and perseverance. So when we're looking ahead all the time and always making our plans and always, hustling and trying to get to our goals, we're not appreciating how far we've come. And so we don't value ourselves and our hard work as much as we should. So this is a time for that. And finally, this is a great time for looking for that theme of divinity within your everyday life. So, of course, I always talk about mundane magic, but this is this is different from that. It's like being aware of all the intricate webs that must all work together in order to create everything that is, was, and always will be. So the things that we can't see, like, the microbacteria in the air, that whatever, it's all there. And if it didn't exist, we wouldn't exist. So it's that kind of magic. And that's that God energy I was talking about that's just everywhere. So that is all I had for like the symbols and the themes. All right, well, let's move on to the runes. The rune, the singular rune. There's only one rune for it. So the rune is Manas, which is man. So your physical life on earth, learning and growing, kind of becoming aware and recognizing that everything exists on this physical plane. It holds the energy of the divine. And that can be shadow, that can be light, finding the balance between them. And for the tarot cards, pretty much all the pentacles work for Holly.
It's so funny because as you were saying about the rune association, I was like, I get so much earth energy from all of this, which, like you kind of said earlier, that's druidry, really. Like, I mean, it's earth and tree, and it's a tree astrology. So for sure, but it's just, that was such a good encapsulation, I feel like. So.
Yeah. It's pretty much is. It's just pentacle energy. It's earth energy. And I don't know. I like Holly. It's fun. I just like looking at it sometimes. It's your sign. It is. It is my sign. I loved it before it was even my sign. So I'm like a hipster Holly lover.
There you go. It's probably the Unicorn Association.
Probably. Most likely. All right. So other tarot cards, we've got the Nine of Pentacles. So that's like finding peace in the movement through this life on earth. So the Emperor is kind of echoes that Manas energy to me. And the Empress is balancing the energy of the Emperor. It's kind of a grounding into the energy of the earth rather than a desire to rule over it. The Hanged Man is like a sacrifice in the name of gaining wisdom and understanding. And Four of Pentacles is being that cautious, protective, kind of being aware and on guard, not allowing evil to take from your earthly existence, but might be holding on too tightly when you could be a force of good. So self-preservation turns into greed after a while.
Right.
So.
Which sort of reminds me of Strength in a way. It's like same, but different. Just going, yeah. I thought maybe you would bring up the Star, only because I thought maybe that bird was the starling, but I wasn't sure.
I actually had the Star, and I'm like, no, but I think I used that last time.
Oh, well,
and
whatever.
it was more because of the balance, right? It was the balance between good and evil and light and dark.
Oh, for sure.
That's why I was going through it. Yeah.
But I do remember us talking about how the bird, was it in that card that the bird was often seen as some kind of messenger? And so I wondered if it connected with the starling.
Yes, you are correct. I forgot about that conversation, but yes, absolutely.
That's okay. I remembered. So yeah, I mean, I feel like the Star would fit. I don't think it matters that you used it in another sign. Whatever.
All right. Yeah. Let's use the Star.
Tarot cards are complex,
They are. They're everything and nothing all at once, just like us.
Yes, absolutely. Only what you make of it, really.
Yeah. Yeah, but it sounds so esoteric when we talk like that. And I feel
it does, yes.
mystical.
But I don't know. Hopefully it resonates with people. Well, that was awesome. Loved getting to know about Holly. Yeah, it's so interesting to see how, I think I mentioned this last time as well, how the degrees get earlier and earlier, because of course it's the 13-month. So I feel like we're going to start having less and less overlap as we move through, but we'll make it work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, we will.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it for this bonus episode.
I think so.
Yeah. I hope everyone's having a lovely summer and have a great Leo season. We'll see you next time.
Get out in the sun and drink water.
And happy Holly season, too.
That as well.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this bonus episode of the Tarot Coven Cast. Stay tuned for our next bonus episode where we'll be talking about the Zodiac sign Virgo and the Celtic Tree sign Hazel. And until then, everyone, keep making magic.